Hi, I'm Luke, and with me is Dan. Hi, Dan.
Hello.
This is 15, the podcast where we review the first 15 minutes of three films and choose one to watch for next week. Dan, I usually like to get straight into the films, but it's not the greatest set of three films we've got to begin with.
No, they're a bit subsumed. Is that the right word? Subdued.
Subdued, yeah. Like you mentioned, I think whilst we're watching
Slow
them,
burn.
a slow burn. So let's get to the one that definitely wasn't. Last week we decided to watch Face Off in preparation for this week's episode. So let's get to that one. Dan, something though that happened to me up in Scotland in between, I actually saw a gentleman with a face transplant. Like
What?
an actual face transplant. I
They're
saw
not real,
one.
though, are they?
I mean, I definitely saw one on morning TV a few years ago, and I think they've probably taken off by
Morning
then.
TV.
Yeah.
Hello,
No,
it's me, Matt Baker.
that's not
And
where.
today on the One Show, I've got somebody with no face.
How much of a nocturnal beast do you have to be that the one show is your daytime viewing?
Touche.
But no,
I can't
actually,
do a Philip Schofield impression. Oh, wait, I
oh,
can.
I bet you can. If Dan's visual joke of him hogging on a fat one isn't enough for you to get onto our YouTube channel, I don't know what is. Whilst you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe as always.
And join our Patreon as well.
To find the link that's in the bio for this podcast. Okay, Dan.
Luke, when I watch our things back, I can never find the Patreon link. Will you just make sure you put it in this one?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I feel like we can't actually take money off people. Well, we give them this for free, and I feel guilty for that.
Wow. How was Scotland, quickly? Any
face transplant was the highlight. Gotta be.
Yeah.
He was American man, rich man with his rich family. You can have all the money in the world, Dan, but you can't have real eyebrows. You know what I mean? Okay, so let's get to Face Off then. This is the first film where John Woo got a Hollywood budget, and goodness me, he spent every penny of it. This is bonkers.
Do you reckon he went down the street going, "Woo, make it rain"?
Well, for John Woo, was that the joke?
Yeah, that was the end of the joke.
Dan's off to a flyer. Sometimes you start an episode, you know if you're going to be doing the heavy lifting. That's all I'm going to say. Dan, what was your first comment on this film?
Boom-bastic. They call me Mr. Boombastic. Really fantastic. Let me hear you roar.
Yeah. So what actual critique?
That's my review. My review?
Yeah.
Raggy review. It's ostentatious, isn't it?
How so?
I mean, it's just everything's at this, isn't it? It doesn't shy away from anything. Everything, the set pieces, the budget's been blown.
Yeah. So maybe we should start there with set pieces then. So
Yeah.
I kind of want to start with premise. I think premise is a great place to start. So obviously the idea of this film is he's a special agent, John Travolta, and he decides to take his face off and swap it with a master criminal to sort of infiltrate his gang to find out where a bomb is located. Now,
Correct.
Mental already.
That is mental.
It gets even more mental when you realise all the characters should be fired from their jobs because of just gross misconduct. And the fact that all this is based on an insane hunch. Like,
What's the hunch?
Whilst interrogating, and first of all, his interrogation tactics are off the wall.
Yeah.
Mental, just complete abuse to the witnesses who might not have done anything wrong. Innocent until proven guilty, apparently John. And one of them says,
Which John?
Travolta, I heard a
So you refer to them as surnames? Because there's too many Johns flying around. There's a young John Krasinski in this as well.
And John Krasinski?
Yeah. You know what's
in
him?
This minor role? He wouldn't have
He
been
was
very
a kid.
old.
Yeah. Minor role.
And sorry, I've got a small sausage roll joke in my end.
Go on, make it.
No, it's awful.
Go
So
do they deliver?
What? I'm chicken and bitch. So, he's asking them about something all at the bottom. And on the way out, the gangster says, "Oh, I heard something about the first, as in a date." And on that, he decided to rip his face off and swap it for someone else's without telling anyone. Mental. That is insane. What, this man is ludicrous. He should be locked up in prison. That's where he's
Can we speak about John Travolta quickly? I thought John Travolta was worse at playing John Travolta than when he was playing Nick Cage's character.
Well, I something very similar to that is I find the idea of John Travolta playing the crazed Nicolas Cage character incredibly watchable.
Yeah,
That
it's
bit was
more. He was,
brilliant.
and Nick Cage was great as deranged Nick Cage, but also John Travolta.
Yeah, he was good as John.
But John Travolta as John Travolta was terrible.
How do you mean?
John Travolta as the cop, really bad. I thought, what is
Right.
this? I thought it was a really bad, cheesy film. The moment they swapped faces, I was like, actually, Nick Cage carries this film as both deranged cop, deranged villain, from which John Travolta's character then mimics and kind of does alongside. Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean?
No, 100%. Once you start forgetting about plot holes and
Yeah,
stop
yeah.
noticing stuff, and you just sort of, I'm just going to enjoy this now, you do realize that the vehicle is Nicolas Cage, like
Yeah.
completely. And although he has some moments which are, I'd love to hear the dialogue between his director because I'm sure Nicolas Cage just doesn't listen and he just goes full throttle in every take. I'm adamant he does.
He has to.
Those moments are, he has to, it's in his rider. Those moments are interesting, but this idiocy that leads from them means all the poignant moments are just completely lost.
Yeah.
They don't have the effect that they're
No.
meant to have.
It feels, this whole film for me felt very video game-esque. And what I kind of mean by that is that any moments,
Go on.
everything is a set piece, everything is choreographed. And obviously, of course, every film is choreographed and every film is set piece. Of course, I understand that. It's broken down. But this felt even more so that there's no, it's a narrative. It's a way of telling a narrative rather than there actually being any craft or any kind of display of not talent.
No, I get this. I get what you mean. The acting,
I find it
acting's
really
not,
hard to review this film. Go on, maybe you
well,
can.
the acting's not sort of, you're not seeing any development in the acting or development in the characters. And I get that completely. I don't think the actor's been told, yes, you can go and do something with this scene. Or, like, I know a few directors do their films in a way where they leave a lot of things open to interpretation with actors and so on and back and forth and an open dialogue. I do get the point. I think you can definitely see the tonal switches, like they're literally the gearbox clunking as it changes between like levels and goes
this
from
is
quiet
sad,
moments to loud moments.
this is action, this is tender, this is, because that was actually, just to jump to the end of the film, I think something it lost was, when when the wife realizes and kind of twigs and she takes him back. Now I know you've just said you have to ignore plot holes, but like the trauma that would have gone through your head if that had happened would just be astronomical. Like, you wouldn't be able to look your spouse in the face ever again. Do you know what I mean? That whole mental image would just fuck with you so much. And there was none of that. It was just, oh, I'm now on your side to help you defeat the villain. It was very kind of route one, this whole film. Yeah, and you're right. I like that clunk of tone. That's a nice sort of way of putting it.
No, 100%.
It was, I just found it really hard to review because I enjoyed it. Yeah, totally. The set pieces were amazing.
Were they? They were at the start.
The spectacle of them.
Yeah, I don't know. It became a bit of a trope factory towards in parts of this film. We had the going into the ambulance, talking like he was going into the ambulance to his beloved wife, holding to someone's hand before they drop, like a prison break, like all that stuff was so cliched. And for me, the action sequences, like I know I'm a bit numb to them anyway. That's a fault of mine. I get a bit bored during action sequences, but this was elongated. Some of these are like, it's like that bit in a musical, which I've always say I can't stand about musicals, where you think they finish a film, a song, and then they pick it back up again, and that kept happening in this as well. It's, like, come on, can we move on now? Like the bits when it was good were when they had the full change of the bodies and the twists were happening. But like with most thriller action subgenres, in the final act, action takes over and it just stays on the tracks. And I don't know, I struggle a little bit, but it had moments.
There were elements of this I thought that kind of were reminiscent of Bond, and I don't. The kind of, again, the maybe it's just because they were in boats and that sort of reminded me of From Russia with Love, but I just thought there, the kind of old the classic Bonds where there's the big showpieces, something that Spectre kind of was a whole throwback to, where you're at different locations, lots of explosions, lots of high stunts, speedboats, cars, planes, train, all of that. That kind of, I enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, I think overall it's just this video game point that I've already sort of said, is that it just felt everything was kind of play along.
Yeah, it felt like a contradiction in terms for me, like because on one side it's undoubtedly cheesy, it's bonkers, but I do think it's well made.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it doesn't have the subtlety really,
No.
but it is a well made film. It's well directed, no complaints there. Set pieces, like you say, I'm not always wowed by them because most of that is just sort of organising and
Yeah.
so on. And I know once you look past the bonkers premise and how you get there, the idea of two men switching bodies and one being stuck and one being in an advantageous situation and sort of almost looking enviously at each other's lives, that's
Yeah.
quite nice. And even when they bring the son element in, when
Yeah.
you think, do they want to stay in these bodies? One's lost his son, one's got a younger son, he can almost relive that. That's quite good. But then the really cheesy, clunky, doughy-eyed ending, which you can tell's coming, those bits are just quite unforgivable, really.
Yeah, and this is what it's. I really enjoyed it, and I would watch it again. And it's also a film that's not taxing in any way, which is quite nice sometimes to go. And because it's so long, you can kind of just sit there and let it wash over you, and you get it. But you're right that I struck. This is how I'm struggling, because I enjoyed it and I watched it, and I probably would watch it again. But from a critical point of view, it's terrible. But
Yeah, it's tough to. I love your point that it's really difficult to review this film. It is.
you said off camera, I think, didn't you? Listeners might realise.
Careful what I said off. Careful
But
what I said off camera.
that it's more of a movie than a film.
Yeah, 100%. I do think that this is just the movies, and this is sort of something to one of the few films where I let people eat popcorn whilst watching it. Do you know what I mean? Sure, let's have popcorn. Let's watch this film because it is fun. And what did you think of? I know you touched on it a little bit. But what do you think of acting performances? Did anyone impress you? Anyone at all?
I thought they did. When they were switched, they really did.
Okay.
I thought John Travolta captured this deranged psychopath that Nick Cage had created in those first 15 minutes. I think that because there was no subtlety, like you said, these caricatures that they made were quite... Is evocative the right word? Quite tangible, quite real. They weren't. They were absurd, but they were so full of life, vivacious, that then that gave... They were quite enjoyable performances to watch.
No, I definitely take that point. I mean, I've always got this long-held belief that I think Travolta himself, as a person, is always a bit bewildered. Like, I think there's a hint of Asperger's to Travolta. Don't know if that's libelous, but I just think there is a bit to. He just doesn't seem
the
like he's always with it.
would be annoyed.
Like even the Adina Menzel video, which we both absolutely adore, when he's introducing her, that's just another sort of sign that this guy's just not fully with it. And I think that was just him being himself then.
Where do you stand on the sort of movement that Nick Cage is actually a very skilled actor?
Oh, no, I do. Well, obviously, a big argument in his case is Roger Ebert, which he claims Nicolas Cage should be the best of his generation, and like puts him on a pedestal with like Jack Nicholson and De Niro and Pacino. Yeah. And like I've seen Leaving Las Vegas, where he won the Oscar for, and he's very good in that. And I think this is probably the start. You can sort of see him going full mental on camera, and no one puts a hand on his shoulder and says, "All right, simmer down."
Hang on, yeah.
And I think he thinks he can get away with it. And I know I get why he's meant to be so deranged in this, because you have to see the transition in characters and show the clear black lines between them. So when Travolta becomes Cage, like you see it in the prison sequence, he has to embody this maniac. So I get it, but surely there's levels, there's degrees to how Nicolas Cage should act and how mental he should be, right? It's just. But
did you not think he was really good as this kind of?
I think he's a good actor. I do think he's a good actor.
Yeah, I enjoyed both performances. I thought everybody around them was dreadful.
They were dreadful.
I thought
daughter, wife, son, all awful.
Just bad.
And also, didn't it feel like if you didn't know if you had no idea who Nicolas Cage was or John Travolta, we said that about 40 fucking times already. If you didn't have no idea who they were, I wouldn't think that this was like a big famous film. It feels like a cheesy Channel 5 sort of made film.
Yeah,
despite
late
all the
night.
money spent on it. Yeah.
Where you first watched it.
Yeah, very much so. Right.
I've just got two quick things, very quick.
Yep.
Can't remember.
Floor is yours. We'll just one.
Can't remember one of them. Second thing was, I'd love to see Tarantino and Nick Cage in do a film together.
I mean, to be fair, Tarantino used to be very well known for reinvigorating the careers of people, and Nicolas Cage could kind of do that. Have you seen Nicolas Cage's next film? I think it's just come out.
Is it the one where he plays Nick Cage?
Yeah. Incredible weight of talent or whatever it is. Yeah, I mean we've reached full peak meta mode, haven't we? There, but yeah, no, I'd quite like to see that. Who knows? I don't know.
Would you recommend this film?
I don't know. What are you giving out of 10?
I don't know. Did I give it a 6? I think.
Yeah.
I said I would recommend it, but 6.5 actually. I'd recommend it, but not seriously.
6.5. I'd probably recommend 6.5. 6.5 is probably the same as what I had. Sorry. Yeah, I don't know. Depends who I'm recommending it to.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If Danny Lee said, "What's your favourite film?" I wouldn't say Face Off.
I like the fact that you and Danny Lee meet and he's quizzing you on your film knowledge. Danny, more from this oracle. What is your favourite film? Fuck off, Danny. Where's Antonia Quirk? Okay, we can't put it off. We can't put it off much longer. Let's get to the actual films we're meant to be reviewing. So
let's do it.
We have to choose one of these, and it might not be this first one. So the first one up is Legend.
Newly added to Netflix.
That's why we're doing it. Came out a few years ago. It's the biopic on the Cray twins, both played by Tom Hardy. Dan, where do you stand on this one?
On the gullet, to quote you. Awful soundtrack.
It was. I mean,
it was terrible.
Just like everything else, this is just wishy-washy. But the big thing I have on this film is...
Or was it washy-wishy?
Very good. Is that a twin joke or something? I don't know. Is the fact
more a panto joke in my head. I didn't really follow it.
Doesn't like you. Is if you weren't
says the
already,
guy with the hands.
If you weren't already a fan of the Cray twins, right? Yeah. Then there's nothing in this opening 15 minutes.
Spit that out.
I was waiting for you to comment, and I just thought maybe he hasn't. Maybe he's learned that we're trying to fucking broadcast here. We shouldn't keep interrupting constantly. Anyway, if you're not a fan of the Cray twins or on their history, there's nothing in this first 15 minutes to make me watch this film. Do you know what I mean? It hasn't tried to capture the attention of the sort of unsure viewer. And that's my review.
Yeah. I have some. This is just fine. Well, it's probably not. It's not really a film for me. Yeah, there's a couple of quite big errors for us. There was a real colloquial reference. Did you get that?
Go on.
Oh, is that Barbara Windsor and
all right, Joan Collins.
Joan Collins. Oh yeah, I have celebrities in it. I just thought again, it sort of roots it in this.
Well, is it not for EastEnders fans, this film, anyway? Because it's so EastEnders Cockney. So if they see Barbara Windsor, the name on the screen, they're, yeah, you're amazing. I don't know. Maybe it's my anti-London bias, being born and raised in the North, but I don't let stuff like that slide. You've got to impress me. I'm not just going to be sold on an aesthetic. And an aesthetic that I didn't like. I didn't like the cinematography here at all.
It was very shiny as well.
Yeah, horrible, like this fake gold hue, wasn't it?
Yeah. No grit. Like the Cray twins are notoriously violent gangsters. This should be a really gritty, punchy opening, and it's all quite subsumed and quite sort of
that word again.
BBC. It's like the BBC version of it. Like, he walks down the street, says hello to the cop, offers him a cup of tea, and then goes and asks the girl out for a dance on Saturday.
100% feels like a BBC movie. This does, and like we both mentioned that the set looks identical to the Peaky Blinders street.
Yeah,
and Peaky Blinders has got that grit. It's got that sort of esteem, and this just doesn't have it. This feels like posh EastEnders, and not even that posh. Yeah.
No. I also have an issue, and this is a kind of step back from the film. But this kind of cult of personality around Tom Hardy and him playing this geezer character, the accent I find incredibly unpenetrable. It really grates on me, and I don't think he's particularly good at it. It seems forced. It's not particularly clear.
He's one for sort of trying to be difficult to understand, isn't he? Let's be honest.
But it just seems a bit tropish at this point, and it's Tom Hardy's doing that accent again. I don't know. It felt like he was doing a voice, and part of acting is sort of hiding the craft, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you said to me, because I remember when we both really get into films, I said I was a big fan of Tom Hardy, it's like, 6-7 years ago or something. And you basically said, is that still the case now? Do you think he still holds that place? And like, he has this deal with, I can't remember who it's with now. I think it might be with Sony, but he's got one of these like first refusal contracts that can come up across him, and he can see if he wants to do them. And for a man that has that privilege, he's picked some poor films. He really has. He had that sort of really sweet spot like Bronson and Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, and he's just like Venom.
He's amazing in
this, and it's just what's going on here? What is going on?
I don't know. It just, for me, I've sort of watched a few of the other things. So you've not really seen much Peaky Blinders, have you?
I've seen the first 2 seasons.
Where he plays Alfie Solomon, he's like this legend, and it's decent, Tommy, yeah. And then he did Taboo, which
of course, another London thing, yeah.
London thing. Also, we've reviewed on this before, but Venom again. Oh yeah, it's just scruffy, like this kind of down and out geezer kind of persona that he sort of adopts. I just don't think it's particularly. I don't think it's particularly good. I don't know why he keeps doing it.
But it's not challenging. Well, he was in The Drop, and he was good in that.
Yeah, he was good in that.
That's a similar character. Again, that is another very similar character, and I don't think he's really pushing his range here. Let's try and stick with the film, though, although it's hard not to talk about Tom Hardy because he plays both characters. We only really prominently see one of the twins. The other one's in an asylum. So it's the man about town. I can't remember. It's Ronnie and Ray, isn't it? I can't remember which one's which. I think Ronnie's the
Reggie,
man about...
isn't it?
Or is it Reggie?
Reggie and Ronnie. And we see Reggie first, and then Ronnie's the mental one.
Ronnie's the mental one. But yeah, we basically see Reggie walking around. And I promise, although we heard the voice, and that might give it away, I genuinely was already going to say, this is such a film Gemma Arterton would be in.
Is it actually her, though? Did you confirm it?
Because I
thought it was the girlfriend who we then see on screen.
Yeah, I think that is her, right?
No, that's not Gemma Arterton.
Oh, is it not? Who is it? It's one of those ilk, isn't it? It's one of that ilk.
She does look like it's Emily Browning.
Who? Are you sure?
Yeah. Right, Gemma Arterton's not in it. Fucking hell, Duffy's in it though.
Where did Duffy go? I asked that question for years, and it went unanswered until we found out what happened.
It's like, why is a raven like a writing desk? It's one of those sort of. Well, it's not actually because that. No, there's an answer. Where did the
Raven
go?
Get raped? So,
whoa, can you believe that? I just want to talk though about narration, because in the last film what we're going to review, there is good narration. I would say. Would you agree?
The voiceover. I can't remember what the film was.
And this was bad narration. And do you think it was because it was Morgan Freeman, or is it just because this is bad narration?
Well, Morgan Freeman, as we all know, is in a tier of his own. For being the voice of God, storyteller, narrator, as it were.
Literally.
And this was Gemma Arterton's shrill. It wasn't even
Gemma Arterton. It's Emily Browning girl.
But yeah, no, this was poor. And I was really quite disappointed. I thought it was going to be punchy. I thought it was going to have a little bit more reason to watch
Spunk.
I thought it had a bit more spunk to it, 100%. Well, speaking of spunk...
It was slow.
It was slow. Have you got any interest in watching this?
Not really.
Lovely stuff. Okay, let's move on to...
And neither should you, listener/viewer.
Let's move on to The Constant Gardener. This is our next film. So this got some Oscar buzz back in the mid-noughties. Rachel Weisz won the Oscar for it.
She did.
And it's about a diplomat, a sort of mild-mannered diplomat, and his sort of hot-headed relationship wife.
Can you put a cutaway to Hong Kong Phooey in here? Is it the sergeant? No. Is it Janet, the telephone operator? No. Is it the cat? No. Is it the janitor? Could be.
Right, let's start with the the structure of this film then. So I quite like what they've done. So they've decided to, the wife dies. The wife dies, and you find that in the first minute that the wife dies. And instead of building up to that moment and having this big shocking moment...
Who's the director of this film? Sorry to interrupt, but who's the director of this film?
I'm not sure. Apologies.
The Constant...
But thank God you interrupted instead of just quietly Googling that whilst I spoke.
Fernando Mireles, because he's up there with Hitchcock. Kill off your lead character in the first few minutes.
So instead of building to that moment, they decide to have her killed early, and they use flashbacks to tell us why we should care, which I quite like. That's quite a nice move. But then for the rest of the 50 minutes, it's a touch stale. I guess he's meant to be this, like I say, he's the tentative, pensive character, isn't he, Ralph Fiennes? And Rachel Weisz is very clearly this revolutionary, hot-headed, explosive character. And I just don't...
What was that word there?
What's going on here? Do you know what I mean? Have you got any comments on the first 15 minutes?
Yeah. I've got 3, actually.
We'll
I find it all very British. It's all very, oh, hello. Oh, yes. Oh, I'm tending plants, and it's all that kind of Radio 4 kind of audience. And that's very deliberate, because have you ever read any John le Carré? Because this is where it's a John le Carré novel that's been adapted. Okay. John le Carré's novels are very much like that. They are very, oh, hello, kind of British. Oh, and it's all that kind of, it's not the big action spy, shoot 'em up, bang, 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 big stunts. It's all the
I thought that was an alternative title.
Put him?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's stiff. I get that, it is stiff.
And so there's very much you can see his voice in this film very clearly, which I guess is a good adaptation. It's good feature to have if it's an adaptation. But does it make for compelling watching? Yes, no. Oh, I'm very sorry, but your wife, she's dead in a car. There's, oh, she's dead, and then it's all a bit stilted. And
I guess that kind of works in this idea of it being in a political sphere where people don't always say their minds, people don't act on rash instinct, people think before they speak. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't feel too out of place. But yeah, I take your point. But these are British upper class, middle classes going over to Africa, and maybe you want to see the distinctions in personality and in upbringing and cut from different cloth. So maybe that becomes apparent. But no, I get your point. It does feel a little bit stilted.
I quite enjoyed though when it seemed to turn up a level.
Did it turn up?
It did. It felt a bit for me. We get this in the flashback when he then takes her, meets her, takes her to bed,
and then the sex scene, of course.
No, and then straight away into seeing her burnt corpse and him throwing up. I kind of like.
I'm not that adventurous in the bedroom, I must tell you. I've never got to the burnt corpse stage. What did you think of the sex scene? Because it was probably the most interesting thing to happen in the first 50 minutes. I don't think it's particularly lewd, was talking about
it. Again, very British. It's all sort of, oh, let me take your tights off.
I'm wearing my knickers off.
Grey boxer shorts. What and done. Was that good for you, madam? Yes, good.
So let's talk. So
you put that Family Guy clip in, yeah?
do we think a twist is coming? So we see him. He supposedly sees his wife.
They probably will
dead.
Dance at some point, yeah.
He supposedly sees his wife dead. His wife is said to have shared a night with a different gentleman previous to her car crash while she was out of sight of her husband. So there is layers here. There's room for a thriller to maneuver amongst these sort of weeds. So do you think that's going to happen, or do you suspect this will be pretty? I was about to say linear, because it's not linear because it's interspliced, but pretty rudimentary.
What was the question? Sorry, I just was thinking about your gardening pun.
That's it. What was your final comment you had on this one, by the way?
Again, slow burn. But probably more interesting and more compelling, or more thought-provoking than
the Grey Twins. Okay, let's get to our final film. And yes, we do have to choose one of these 3, so let's hope it's a nice one. We have got $1 Million Baby, which won Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actor back in 2000.
Second only to Lord of the Rings, I think. to pick up so many acclaimed ones
in that year. So $1 Million Baby, Clint Eastwood's baby, if you will. Dan, how did you find this one then? For a boxing film, you've got to try and avoid cliches, and it hasn't done that so far. Very hard for boxing films to do that, though, to be fair.
So you're a bit of a connoisseur of the old boxing films because you know everything about boxing, don't you? Being a former... Oh, wait, no.
A former, you go and guess the weight cast.
Watching a lot of boxing films and having an interest in the sport. Yes, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think...
Get that right. Sorry, in my head. So sorry, it's just...
I think the viewers can tell that by looking at me. I'm a huge boxing and MMA fan. I think they get that.
They do.
So let's start with Morgan Freeman.
You and Joseph Butterworth.
So
I thought the opening was actually quite dynamic.
Okay.
But maybe that's because I'd seen two very undynamic openings.
Oh yeah, no, I'd say that definitely more dynamic than the other fare that we've been served up. I liked that it was perspective from a cut man, in a sense, at the ringside.
You're gonna have to give the lingo to the gentleman that deals
with the messed up face as you come back to the corner. But, puts the Vaseline on, stitches you up, squirts out the blood, that sort of thing. And I was interested in having that perspective.
Why is he touching his penis?
That's not usually shown. But like you said, it's a better start than the two previous films we have watched. This episode, yes.
And then it slows down.
Yeah, and it's in a boxing gym, and he has the same tryhards come in, and no hopers, and have they paid? Well, you can stay for long, but don't encourage them. And I don't think Clint Eastwood's acting is very good at all.
He doesn't blink when he fires a gun.
Does he not?
No. One of the few actors to not.
His cheeks are like they're constantly blinking. He's got that many fucking wrinkles. My God. Have you seen his face? Mental. One man in Hollywood that said no to Botox. I don't know. Why didn't you interrupt me and see what it was?
Sorry. I'm just musing to myself. Talk about wrinkles.
Go on, what's the film? Go on, what's the film?
That one with those 4 women.
What?
The one with the 4... And they had the little flower thing that... Thingy from... The Godfather did it. What's the woman in Godfather?
For God's sake. As soon as you said that, it's chucked out my head. In Annie Hall, the very famous actress.
Yeah. Oh, what's she called?
Anyway, it doesn't matter. Go on.
That film.
Diane Keaton.
Keaton was in... What was that film about 4 women?
Book Club.
Book Club. Going after the Wrinkly Brigade.
I was going to say we were pretty much isolating our viewers here, but actually... guys, you should listen back to the old Book Club episode. That was a good one. But I won and only. Okay, $1 Million Baby, Dan.
Sorry.
Anything else?
Well, I want to talk to you about that gym. No, the gym kind of setting, because it's quite a good way of dealing with some exposition, isn't it?
Yes,
because at a glance you see all these different characters. Anthony Mackie's obviously the peppy upstart, that other weedy guy. There's the girl, the wannabe. You've got the prize fighter that's already there. Because boxers, tell me if I'm wrong, or maybe just that setting is so... the characters are so big and so loud that you instantly kind of then have points from which to spiral off and grow. And Clint Eastwood, I guess, there is doing that same thing of being the kind of tough, no-nonsense gym boss, and whereas Morgan Freeman, again, is being the kind of steady underhand, with him. So, yeah, whilst this film's not doing a lot, nothing unique, I don't think it's doing anything particularly badly.
No, I agree, and I think a boxing setting is always an interesting one for sort of troubled characters, like... In today's setting, it's used for discipline, and like people that don't go into the army go to a boxing ring, and you'll have father figures there to sort you out. People to keep you straight and narrow. So that's always going to be interesting. And obviously, as you have new characters enter, you get to hear their backstory, so it doesn't feel tortured when you're hearing about their backstory, and you see Hilary Swank's character struggling on hard times, and that classic line by Morgan Freeman, where she's like in the middle of nowhere and goodbye or whatever, like where she was born, and those moments are quite nice. But for me, I kind of feel like I've seen this before, and I'm a bit. I know the Academy love a boxing film, but I don't really know why this has got such incredible reviews and such acclaim so far. As I just never got around to it. I'm not.
Which films do you rate though more highly above this?
The Fighter, David
When
Russell
did that
film,
come out? After?
just
Before?
after, yeah. It has a woman in it who wants to be a fighter, and it has an old man who's running a boxing gym. No, it doesn't.
But what I'm saying is it okay? Are you liking films that have come after
I,
this film or before?
no, I don't. I don't think it's just akin to this film, but like stuff like Raging Bull from
Yeah.
before is an exceptional film. Like when we joke about Creed, but Creed came out a few years ago, and the first hour,
Quite a few years ago.
the first hour is so good of Creed. That really does do something different with the genre. But anyway, I don't want to talk too much about other box films. So let's try and stick with this one because this is probably the film we're going to watch. So let's think of some other nice things.
Well, I think again, it didn't do anything offensive to me, and I thought actually the opening was okay and was quite, I would want to see where it goes, and I can very easily see what's going to happen. We're going to get, the big guy's going to fall, Anthony Mackie guy's going to step up, there's going to be a crisis there, the girl's going to get trained, etc., etc. I see all of that, but maybe this film will surprise me, and I'm happy to let it, because it's not doing anything badly.
Okay, lovely. Right, we'll get around to this one then.
Captured my attention more than
the ones that we can't remember the names of.
Yeah.
Well, let's stick with this one then. I feel like we might have shortchanged the viewers on this one. Viewers, that just shows how much we've neglected our listeners. Free watchers on YouTube. By giving such free mediocre films so far. So I just want to quickly mention before we go down, because we've just got a little bit of time left. I watched a film recently that I thought was absolutely fantastic, and I want to really highly recommend. So I watched The Handmaiden, which is the Korean film which won the Oscar for foreign language film a few years ago now, about 6 years ago. So that's currently up on streaming sites. Try and find it. Give it a watch. An exceptional sort of erotic thriller, so clever, so sort of a sideways glance at it itself, and very, very special film, really intriguing. Give it a watch.
Camping wasn't that fun then?
That was previous to camping. Camping trips was just pure reality TV whilst we were stuck in the tent. Dan, have you seen anything recently that you want to recommend to the viewers?
The Aurora Borealis. It's quite expensive to get there.
Very nice. You can see it from top of Scotland, apparently. Not when I was there. John O'Groats.
Went all the way to the top.
With John O'Groats, more like John O'Scroats. Awful. We'll never go back again. Horrible. Horrible people. Horrible place. Thanks to our Scottish listeners and our Scottish viewers. We'll be back next week to review $1 Million Baby. Thanks, Dan.
Bye.